Hello, welcome to DogZone. I'm Mark Rosanowski. This is Craig Roberts. Going to be previewing.
Welcome into the new season of DogZone. Andy McCook here to take you through the show as per normal in this century. And gee, it's good we've moved things forward a little bit from back in those days. But the one thing that hasn't changed is Mark Rosanowski. He's still here. Rozo, thank you for joining us here on DogZone. Two major changes coming in as you've lost your perm and your co-host has put on a kg or two.
No comment on either, Andy. There were actually calls for the perm to come back at the Greyhound Racing Awards. Look, I'm sorry. That's been declined. Stylist is not interested. Not sure I've got enough hair for the tight curlers either, to be frank. Gotta say, yeah, I'm here for better or worse, richer or poorer. I'm not quite sure how I've survived nearly 3 decades starting out that wooden. Andy, those were the days, as they say.
Oh, they certainly were. We wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for you and getting things underway back in those days. So they certainly do have their place, and we will fondly look back over those memories. Well, our new show here been on 9:30 on a Wednesday night. We have got a slightly new look and a couple of wee changes. You can now get in touch with us via social media. So if you are on Twitter at @TAB_racing, if you are wanting to get in touch with us here at DogZone. Of course, this is the week where things start to get underway in terms of the New Zealand Cup and the New Zealand Galaxy, which are held here in Christchurch. Rozo, 5 heats have been put together for the Group 1 New Zealand Cup on Thursday, and there are some boomer heats going around as well.
Well, yes, there are, and they deserve the full attention of our first half-hour show, the 5 heats, dogs from around the country. And Andy, because it's 3 rounds, so the finals on Thursday, November the 15th, the semi-finals, of course, are next Wednesday. There's a lot of dogs getting through, not that many missing out in round number 1, and that is good for dogs who are either on a fairly pressed preparation due to injury or other reasons, and for dogs who haven't been to Addington before. So a learning curve and the chance to still get through with an average run in round 1, and things kind of get more serious again next week in the semi-finals, if you like.
It certainly does give dogs an opportunity if something does go wrong, as you touch on, especially dogs having their first look at Addington Raceway. Here's a look at the futures market for the final. Penny Mac has come up favourite. He's at a quote of $5. Dinah Elwyn's at $6, as is Dinah Dave. Then you have to the youngster, or the new kid on the block, and Bago Bye Bye, who is at $7. Everything else is in double figures. There is a place market out, or a top 3 market out for this final as well. Rozo, any value in there? I kind of thought of Venjabale, 14s and 4 on a kind of 1/4 type basis. He's already through to the semi-finals due to his prelude victory, and see, I thought that was backable on an each way basis.
Of the ones in double figures, Andy, I think you're spot on. We've got to remember this dog went around as a $1.70 tote favourite in the New Zealand Cup last year, and he managed to run 3rd. He's done some pretty good things since, including winning a Group 1 distance race. Of course, he gunned down Dirk Bale recently, and Dirk Bale might be worth a look at 12 too, Andy, because if you look at those dogs at the top of the book, and I'm very keen on Penny Mac, but he is going to Addington for the first time. And then you've got dogs like Dinah Elwyn, Dinah Dave, and Bago Bye Bye. Can we imagine them running 3 of their very best races 3 weeks in succession? Well, they may not have to through the first round, granted. But dogs like Bago, well, all of those 3, they've all held the track record in the last few months. We know what they're capable of. But of course, they're also capable of stumbling around in the middle of fields as well.
They certainly are. They're not always reliable early, which can be a big problem at this grade of race. Time now to have a look at heat number 1. It is race number 7 on Thursday evening. It's due to go at 6:33. Chalet Play comes up with box number 3. We've got Dynamonte out in 8, and one of the visitors, DJ Dynamics, draws up in 7. Kennel Mate Big Time Lily in 4. Rozo, pretty even way to get things underway.
It certainly is, and we're going to highlight Chalet Palais because the local has come back in really good form. Andy, and if we have a look at this, I think this is a real confidence boost performance from the dog. He's in the blue rug there, he's worked to the lead. Now, you've got Dinah Elwyn there in the black and white and Dinah Dave in the gold rug, and we know the ability of those dogs. You've got Dinah Monty sitting there back in 5th place at the moment. Must Be Rusty's just starting to go back in the white rug. Andy, I know Dinah Elwyn sort of just checked out on the turn, and then Dinah Dave did there as well. But Chalet Palais did hold on. The time wasn't there, but I think critical timing for this dog to come back to his best form off the back of a Class 4 win prior.
Certainly is. To be fair to him, it was a good win. Dinah Elwyn was outside of him on the turn, and gee, you would have put money on him to roll over top of him late. So to his credit, Chalet Palais has kicked pretty strong. So yeah, it's been a good run from him. We'll take a look now at the head-on of that race, just so we can see what happens into the first turn. So we've got Dinah Monty out in box number 8, Dinah Dave's in the gold and Chalet Palais in the blue. Now Dinah Monty does just get on heels a touch into the turn here, and there it is there. He loses the best part of probably a length and a half there, Rozzo, but he also loses crucial momentum at that point as well. So it's been a good recovery from him to get into 4th, and if he can get around them uninterrupted, then he's a big chance in this heat as well.
Yeah, certainly. It's a heat that is open, Andy. There's no doubt about that. I do think Chalet Palais, who of course came here with some serious Australian Group 1 form to his name, started out very well, went through that flat patch, back at the right time. I think it's a perfect heat for that dog, but it is open.
Certainly is. Some of the coal team that do go around went around on Monday at the Manawa 2. We're going to take a look at that race now. It was, of course, taken out by DJ Dynamics. He's in the green rug of box number 6. Rozzo, this was a good win. Monster Fish muscles through, grabs the lead, and you would have thought he'd be tough to roll from there. DJ Dynamics on heels there. We've also got Big Time Lily and also Big Time Vanessa, who is in the white rug out the back there. But this has been a good win by DJ Dynamics, and the 520 at Addington you think would suit.
Yes, he's a brother to Don't Knock a G, and of course she's the staying star at the moment in the Central Districts. Went close to the track record over the 660 on the same day there. He's been really good the last couple of weeks, DJ Dynamics. He's run some pretty good times around the 2-turn track at Hattrick as well. Of the dogs that came out of that race, and there were 4 of them going around in the heats, Andy, he is the one who really caught the eye there. Big Time Lily actually fought back better than I thought, and she won a New Zealand Oaks heat on the track. And Big Time Vanessa, well, we know how fast she can be. She likes a wide draw. She doesn't get that in an upcoming heat, and so that's a worry for her. Out of that race, certainly DJ Dynamics, the one with a big tick.
Heat number 2 for the Christchurch Casino New Zealand Cup will be race number 8 on the program at Addington Raceway on Thursday evening. It's due to get underway at 7:04. Visitor for Steve Clark, Penny Mac. He has been flying of late. He comes up with a handy draw in box number 2. We've also got a visitor in Blazin Audrey down for the coal team, comes up with 7, and one of the local hopes in Dinah Dave, who comes up with box number 8. Now, we're going to have a look here at Penny Mac winning the Waterloo Cup, and gee, he was pretty impressive on this occasion, Rozzo. We know what he's capable of. He's got a real turn of foot as we see him drive under Blazin Carter into the first turn there. And Jeffy Cops Addington, he's got to be a big hope in this series.
Yes, and that's the key, isn't it, Andy? Will he cop Addington? On what I've seen so far, he seems to take the places pretty well. I know he did the splits and the amazing chase at Hattrick, but that aside, been posting good times from the moment he got on these shores, and good times is understating it, outstanding times generally. And he had a really hard-fought win with Sassy Little Lassie at Cambridge last Thursday, and Steve Clark reporting that the dog wasn't too flash for a day or two after. However, he's picked up and he's decided to head down for the Cup. And Steve's been there and he's done it before, Andy, and I think that's pretty important. Penny Mac is one of those dogs who was foremost in my mind when I made the comment early that more dogs than not will go through from here into the semi-finals next week, the way the series is run, and therefore if you're prepared to back Penny Mac at the $5 to win the final, this first round I think he may not produce his best there. You'd be surprised if he did, but he'll be good enough to get through anyway, and then he'll be better next week.
He certainly will, and I think the better thing about him, he draws to get a little bit of room early as well. You would expect him to be able to get around the 1, and the 3 and the 4 certainly don't crash down, and one of them should be able to get Victoria Vickers before she gets to him. So he does draw well for his first look at Addington Raceway, even though it is a difficult task to do. Blazon Audrey comes down from the coal team from Wanganui. This is her winning her last start off box number 8. This is a pretty handy little field. She has to do a little bit of work early, Rozzo, but at the end of the day, she was just too good for them.
Yeah, exactly. And Blazon Carter was in this, the brother, and Idle Tom typically making ground like he does. It was 30-20. They weren't running the hands off the clock the other day, and of course she didn't get out fast enough to run as quick as she had prior when she broke 30 seconds the week before. Andy, she lost focus in a race at Hattrick, and she got an enforced 28-day stand down. She's come back from that super. The way she's going, she can transfer that form down to Addington Raceway. Again, she'll get a look at it through to the semis, assuming that she does enough to do that, and I just suspect she will. She could really build into the series. Then at the moment, I'd almost put her ahead of Blazon Carter, who... yeah, well, we might talk about him shortly in the heat that he's in, but Blazon Audrey's really taking the step up in the last fortnight.
She certainly has, there's no doubt about that, and if she can get a nice run at them into that first turn, then she has to be amongst the leading chances. Puzzle Tin is one of the youngsters here in Canterbury at the moment who is starting to set the track alight. He's made his way through to Class 5 with his win 2 back. He raced at Invercargill on Tuesday, and he found a little bit of trouble there. One turn isn't really his go in life. He's much better here at Addington, Rozzo, and his last start 30.27 PB, and although he probably needs to improve that a little bit to be competitive in the final, he gets his chance here with a handy run early on.
Yeah, look, he's a dog for the future, isn't he, Andy? And Go Brat, another of the Fahey youngsters who was in that final of the Paul Connor Memorial on Tuesday down there at Ascot Park. Look, neither of them really got the right run on that day, so we probably just disregard that. It's hard to see them at this stage of their career pushing through a series like this and beating the very best, but they're dogs to watch for the future, certainly.
A dog who has been there and done that and certainly has the ability to push through the series is Dinah Dave. Unfortunately for him, he's come up with a pretty rough draw for this round, but Rozzo, as we keep alluding to, you don't have to do a lot to get through this first round, and that's probably a good thing for Dave coming up with the outside draw.
Yeah, totally. Look, he can do it from the outside, and we're seeing that here from box 7, and he has one from the 8, but you're right, we'd like him a whole lot closer in. But Andy, yes, look, if you're going to get a rough draw, it's round 1 where you want it. Maybe luck will smile upon him with the box draws in the next 2 rounds. Certainly got the motor, the capability of being a New Zealand Cup winner.
Oh, he certainly has, there's no doubt about that. He just needs an ounce of luck early, and he's certainly amongst the leading hopes. Heat number 3 will be race 9 on the card. This one due to get underway at 7:24. Edge of Town's been scratched out of this, so Zipping Archie, an interesting runner, comes into box number 1. We've got Corborn Krusty and Bago Bye Bye, Mr. Matt and Big Time Vanessa. We'll take you back to Bago Bye Bye first of all. This is him breaking the track record, 29 and 59 he clocked on this occasion. Rozzo, the big thing about this, and Carltonian and Mr. Matter in this as well, as Bago Bye Bye. The big thing about Bago Bye Bye here, Rozzo, is he begun better than he does usually, and gee, if he's just a stride slow in this heat, I really do fear for him a little bit.
He's a really hard one to weigh up, isn't he, Andy? Because he's won a couple of his races in his grades where it's just been because he's been so far superior to the opposition, because he's really put himself in a position to be beaten. We had heard what he was trialling going into his debut run in New Zealand, and he lived up to that with the time that he ran there, but he got clear in that race. But then in other races, he's been bombing the start, stumbling around in the midfield. Ran 3rd, 4 starts back when he just ran into too much trouble to actually win. A couple of other races, it's just been, as I say, his sheer superiority that has got him home. Can he go 3 weeks performing? I mean, if you're going to win the New Zealand Cup, you're not going to do it from the midfield against the likely opposition. So can he go 3 weeks sort of getting up on the pace? So he's not a dog that I'd risk a lot of money on. We know he's got the speed to win it. The conditions were perfect for the track record that day, and we've got a couple of other dogs in the series, Dinah Elwyn and Dinah Dave, who've run similar time. So I don't think I could back Bago Bye-Bye at $7, but he adds a great deal of interest and a very real chance for the Fahey's to get back on their New Zealand Cup winning roll.
The biggest thorn in his side come Thursday evening, and could be the thorn in Corborn Krusty's side as well as the dog drawn in box number 2. And we do speak of big time Vanessa. Rosso, we're going to have a look at her in a head-on here, and she does have a really bad tendency to head away from the rail straight away.
Well, this is her in box number 3, and it's on Monday. We've gone to the most recent. We could have used just about any run from her. She likes to ease out and wander, and then coming here, she actually gets stood on there by Thomas Williams. So that's what she does. She just wanders up the track. Now she goes to Addington for the first time. It's going to be most interesting to see how she goes, but I think if you're going to put a dollar on anything, Andy, it would be that Big Time Vanessa's going to run fairly wide. And the question then is, well, how well is she going to jump, and will she be leaning across on dogs like Corborn Krusty and Bago Bye-Bye, who have got the ability to go very deep into this series?
Yeah, she certainly could be the biggest thorn on their side, there's no doubt about that. Corborn Krusty, who was victorious in the New Zealand St Leger at Addington, she's got a pretty good record around here. She's in the black and white rug here, and she is able to beat Ego Maniacal, who we also see go through this series. Rosso, this was a big tough win by Krusty. She's got a good record at Addington, and this showed the heart and strength that she does have.
Yeah, she should be a Group 1 winner on the track. She ran second to Corborn Tabor in the New Zealand Oaks when she was clearly the best dog in that series, but that's racing, as they say. As you say, she's got a terrific record on the track, this being a Group 2 win. She's been a Group 1 winner at Hattrick when she really turned it on, but we haven't actually seen her since then jump like she did in that Futurity at Hattrick and burn right through a whole 520 metres. Now, she also was scratched out of a race recently, and the preparation has not been ideal. Matt Roberts saying, Andy, that the last trial was good enough, and what he is relying on here is Krusty improving through the series, the fact that it should be a soft way through, hopefully, this first round. Definitely better next week, hopefully peaking November 15.
That would be the plan, and Matt certainly knows how to peak them for the right day. A dog who really adds a lot of interest and intrigue to this series is Zipping Archie. He does gain a start into this race off box number 1. He'll be the 9 dog. This is him here in front, and that's what he does. Rosso, he has trolled around Addington. He has trolled very fast around Addington. There's no doubting his ability. It's just whether Gene and Dave can get his head in the right spot.
Yeah, honestly, Andy, it's like getting my kids off to school. You've just about got them out the door, and then on go the Yankers. That's extraordinary. That close to the line. If you did your money on them that night, you just weep. The dog has got tremendous speed, and again adds a lot of interest to a race that already has that. With Bago Bye-Bye there, with Krusty there, a Group 1 winner, and with Vanessa's traits, I think if there's one race I'd watch over and over again after the heats on Thursday, this will be the one. And look, I hope they all negotiate their way through, because that is very possible the way that the series is run, and of course they'll be split amongst the semi-finals next week.
Certainly going to be an interesting heat, there's no doubt about that. We're going to head to a quick break here now on DogZone. On the other side, we will dissect the remaining heats of the Christchurch Casino New Zealand Cup. Welcome back into DogZone. It's time now to get underway with the remaining heats of the Christchurch Casino New Zealand Cup. And heat number 4 will be race 10 on the program on Thursday evening, due to get underway at 7:42. And gee, this is a cracker of a heat. Nature's Gent comes up with box 1. Blazin' Carter comes up with box number 2. Down the bottom of the page, we've got Ego Maniacal and Classy Witch, who also look chances in this. And Classy Witch is actually the first dog we're going to go and take a look at here. She's in against a pretty classy field here. Dinah Dave, we've got Ego Maniacal in here as well. Now, Classy Witch is off the red here, which doesn't really suit her. She looks to get out wide, and Rosso, she's better at Forbury, we know that, but her last couple of starts at Addington have had a lot of merit to them, and as we wind this race past the post, gee, she can hit the line strong, and the wide draw certainly suits her down to the ground.
Yeah, Andy, look, you can keep talking about this. This is clearly your Halloween special. I'm surprised you're not wearing a witch's hat. Did you arrive on a broomstick? It is 520 metres, remember. They haven't stepped up to the 645 for the New Zealand Cup yet. $101 the last time I looked. I hope you've got a bit of that. Maybe you've brought her in. Look, I'd love to see a runner of Gary Cleaves go big here. Gary actually got a dog through to the Cup final for me back in 1992, paid $20 for a place in the heat. Ran last in the final, but that's immaterial. So I wish Gary and Gayleen well with Classy Witch. She's going to run without my money. I do like the way that she runs. She's got a nice style and her colour, she looks good. But yeah, good luck with your 100 to 1 shot there, Andy.
You always got to throw a little bit of value out there every now and then, Rozzo, and I'm certainly not suggesting she can win the New Zealand Cup, but I think the way this field's drawn, I could see her storming home into a place and making it through this round. Blazin Carter, who comes down from the Cole team, he certainly adds a lot of interest to this series, Rozzo. There is no doubting his ability when he puts the best foot forward, but the question is, does he put the best foot forward first up at Addington?
Yes, you're exactly right, and forgive my teasing there, Andy, because you're right. Classy Witch is certainly an each-way chance in this heat because we've got Nature's Gent off the inside, last year's winner, not 100% at last year's level, and you've got Blazin Carter, who it's very difficult to know what we're going to get because going back a few weeks after he ran second to in the Waterloo Cup to Penny Mac, and we saw that earlier, he's just lost focus the last couple of races, and he hasn't been the same dog that won his first 3 at Hattrick, where he ran really good opening sectionals and won really, really sharp time. Brendan Cole does believe that this dog is good enough to win the New Zealand Cup, and that's good enough for me. He's got to get through 3 rounds. I don't think there's any doubt on the best couple of runs we've seen from him. He'll be very competitive if he does make that final. Another dog who you'd think would improve out of the first round at Addington, but yeah, on the last 2 weeks you couldn't have him. On a month ago, I'd probably have $1 on him.
The reigning champion of the New Zealand Cup is, of course, Nature's Gent, and we're going to take you back now a year and have a look at him winning this race last year. He is the dog in the blue rug. This is a pretty talented field. Rozzo, he uses his head here. He hooked under Avenger Bale, and that was certainly the winning of the race. The big question is he still in this kind of form? Because lately it sort of looked like he hasn't.
Yeah, I think we can confidently say that he's not, Andy. And of course, he is rising forward. 12 months is a long time in greyhound racing, as we know. This was a magnificent effort on the night. Cactus Jack second, Avenger Bale into third, as I say, $1.70 favourite, going around $14 futures this year. He's been good enough of late. He went to Manukau for the prelude there, and he went through that last year, and of course he won it. And he was a distant third this year, blanket finish with Kiwi Gal winning by a long margin. So we haven't seen that same Nature's Gent in a wee while. He was pretty good, of course, amazing chase time at the end of last season. Certainly gets the right draw, expect him to go through the first round. Would love to see him make the final because he's good enough for that, and I love the defending champ to be there, and that is a possibility.
Heat number 5 will be race number 11 on the card there on Thursday evening at Addington Raceway. This one due to get underway at 8:10. In this we see Dirk Bale come up with box number 5, Visitor and Big Time Wendell with the 7, Opawa Rooster and yet another promising youngster from the Gene and Dave Fahey kennel in Carltonian comes up with 3, and another dog that will certainly make things interesting, Don't Knock a G, comes up with box number 1. Now, Dirk Bale, who is so consistent here at Addington Raceway, and he comes up with box number 5. Now, this is 3 of his last 4 goes at Addington. Now, this is just to show how consistent early this dog is. Rozzo, you look at those first splits there, 586, 580 and 585, and that's just what he's capable of week in, week out.
This is your brainchild, Andy, and thanks to Ben and Patrick for making this work as well, and the production team behind us who make us look as good as they possibly can. This, though, is a good way to highlight the consistency of the dog, and what we're looking for, Andy, if we are going to bet into that futures market, is a dog that we can see producing 3 runs basically a week apart in a row. Well, this dog can do that. The question, I guess, is in terms of actually winning overall, can he clear all the strong dogs that could potentially be on his tail? He's an Auckland Cup winner. I've often underrated this dog at my peril. He's been Group 1 placed as well outside of that. And we just know what he's going to do. We've just sort of proven that there. It'd be highly unusual to see him not in that position. So I think outside of Avenger Bale, if you're backing one at double figures, Dirk might be the one.
I think you're right there. He's just so consistent, as we touched on. And I think the best thing about him is he's strengthened up a little bit of late as well, and he seems to be able to go with them. You know, sort of 6 months ago, Avenger probably would have beaten him quite easily at his last start, but he was able to kick, and Avenger just got past him late. One of the visiting from the CD is Don't Knock a G, comes up with box number 1. Rozzo, again, this is a greyhound that we know how good she is when she turns it on, and the last few starts over the 600 at Manawatu, we have seen her turn it on.
Oh, she's pretty freakish, Andy, and the great thing about her now is she's developing a consistency she didn't have. She's won 15 from 40 with 4 minor placings, so she's still got that win or bust record. Yep, she's been doing it over the 660 lately, but she's been getting handy. Across the track, there's the Cole family there enjoying the success of the Group 2 Nancy Cabane. On Monday, Andy, she was 1/100th of a second outside Ring the Bell's track record. It's not bad going. She'd gone close to it a couple of weeks ago as well. She's run an absurdly fast 520 recently at Hat-Trick. She flicked the switch in the Nancy Cabane across the top where she wasn't leading, and that gave me confidence that, hey, she's actually living up to what she showed us right from the start when she ran a couple of very fast times early on at Hat-Trick. So she gets box 1. It's the right sort of draw for her to get a decent look at the lure at Addington. She could... Look, she's got 4 wins in a row. It's hard to say she's the surprise package of the series, but in terms of her actually being able to step up to the very best dogs, the dogs at the top of the market here, this is one that actually might be able to do it.
She certainly could. I don't think there's any doubt about that. She gets the right run early and makes it through this first round, and gee, she'll just improve out of sight after having a look at the track. Now, of course, it is Halloween, Rozzo. It's time for a little bit of tip or treat.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Been out on the streets and trick or treating with the boys tonight, and end up with a couple of rotten eggs and some flour bombs, but the boys did quite well out of it. They've got a bag full. In terms of getting a bag full on Thursday, I think the best I can do is Chalet Palais. They're on screen in race number 7 on the card, Andy. I think that's the right race, the right heat for Chalet Palais. I don't see him as winning the New Zealand Cup overall, but he could be there for a couple of rounds and certainly a win bet come Thursday. I reckon you're going to stay with a Halloween theme here with a certain dog we've already mentioned extensively on the show.
Well, I just can't beat that mask, to be honest, Rozzo, so I've got to try and stick with the Halloween theme somehow, and I'm going to go with Classy Witch. I think we can play her on a 1/4 type basis. It wouldn't surprise me if she got over top of some of these late. I know there's a couple of greyhounds in there that are a little bit faster than her, but with that wide draw, I could certainly see her getting home late in the piece for a nice placing. Well, that's about all we have time for here on DogZone. We'll head back to Mark Rosanowski. Rozzo, thanks very much for joining us, and I don't know if that masks an improvement or not.
Well, Andy, it's a close run thing. Look, we've got a monster of a few weeks of racing and thoroughly looking forward to it. The Galaxy Heats, we're going to put something on the Punters Lounge for people to get into. If you don't know the Punters Lounge, it's on tab.co.nz. Click on the Punters Lounge. There's a lot of greyhound tips and some in-depth analysis on there. You'll be able to watch this show on there, and also our preview of the Galaxy Heats coming up Friday.
Thank you very much for that, Rozzo. We will be back next Wednesday evening at 9:30 again with a look back at the semi-finals that have taken place, or would have taken place by then, at Addington. But until then, happy punting.
Smoke, not what I imagined. I've been down this road before, and nothing has changed.